Today is Tuesday, September 27th, 2016, and we are interviewing Mrs. Kathryn Yellowley at the Illinois State Library in Springfield, Illinois. Mrs. Yellowley is 93 years old, having been born on March 2nd, 1923. Jill Layton will be the court reporter for today's interview. My name is Joanne Jennings, and I'll be your interviewer today. Please state for the recording what war and branch of service you served in.
World War II in the Army Nurse Corps,
And where were you born?
Decatur, Illinois.
And can you tell me a little bit about your family growing up, your parents and what they did, and if you had any siblings?
Yes, I had a mother and father, and I had a sister and a brother. And my grandparents came from Germany
Okay.
on my dad's side,
Mm-hmm.
and from Ireland on my mother's side.
Mm-hmm. Were you the oldest of your siblings, or youngest, middle? Where did you fall?
I was the youngest.
The youngest. Were any of them in the military?
My brother was.
Do you know where he served? What branch? Or
A little island, excuse me, off of Alaska, way up.
was it during World War II?
Yes.
Or was he in the Army or
He was in the Army,
the Army? Yeah.
and he went in before I went into nurses training. So I thought when I finished nurses training, I would join the service.
So you enlisted. You weren't.
So I enlisted.
What were you doing before you enlisted?
I was in nurses training
So you went straight there from high school?
from high school
And where did you receive your training?
at Decatur Memorial Hospital in Decatur.
And how long was that?
3 years.
3 years. So you went then straight from school to the Army?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Well, from the nursing,
From
yes.
the nursing program
Yes.
to the Army. How old were you when you enlisted?
In training?
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me, 3 years.
So you were 21, 20. How old were you when you entered the Army?
I was about
Remember?
22.
22?
I had joined the Cadet Corps. A lot of people didn't know about the Cadet Corps.
Could you tell me what that is? I'm not familiar with that.
It was a program started for girls in training, and then after you finished your schooling,
Girls in just training for nursing or
nursing,
nursing?
and we had uniforms. It wasn't in existence too long because it had just started, and I did join it. We had our uniforms, and we got, I think it was $15 a month for joining it. And then it was the idea to go right into service.
So what did you do something stateside when you were with the cadets, or what? You got
No.
$15 a month for just joining?
For joining and promising to go into
see.
service.
I see. Okay. What dates did you serve? Do you know when you entered, what year, month and year, and when did you end? Do you know?
When I went into service, I have it written down here. I was only in about 13 months
13 months?
because the war was slowing down and it was over.
I have your paper you filled out here, April 1945. Does that sound right? To May 1946?
Yes,
What rank did you achieve?
second lieutenant.
Second lieutenant. And can you tell me a little bit about your early days of your training, your nurses training.
Yes. They shipped me to Camp McCoy, Wisconsin to enter. And I had signed like a couple weeks before. So we all had to go up there for basic training.
Now, was this just all nurses that went for this training, or were there
Yes,
other?
this is all nurses.
All nurses.
And I had bought a new suit after I got out of nurses training because I wanted to look nice when I went in. We were in those clothes for 2 days. I think that was part of the training. Our suitcases were sitting over at the railroad station. We could see them. And here we were walking around for about 3 days in my new suit and my high heels.
So it probably wasn't very comfortable.
No, it was not.
So what other training? I mean, did you do like the physical training like soldiers do? Did you have exercise and things like that? Or
Yes, we had calisthenics every morning. And we had to do the marching and learn how to take commands so you're on the right foot. It was interesting.
How long were you there? How long did this training last?
It's a little hard to remember. But we had they rotated us in and out, depending on where they needed someone. And they decided, well, there was 350 nurses, that we were going to be replacements for nurses that had been in the fighting in Manila. So they were going to put us on a ship and send us over there for replacement. We were only supposed to be like out on the ocean for about 5 days. And they put us on a ship that kept breaking down.
Oh.
And we were out there about 35 days.
My goodness.
Most of the time just sitting.
Did you have enough supplies and everything on the ship if you weren't expected to be out there that long? Enough food and water?
No, we didn't. We ran out of food. No, we had food, but we ran out of water. So we traded food for water with a French ship. After we got squared away, as I said, the war was calming down. They didn't know what to do with 350 of us and a broken down ship.
Now, were you still in the water, or had you made it to Manila? Where were you?
No, we were just sitting.
Sitting, okay. They didn't know what to do with you.
And the boat was not moving.
Okay.
So they finally got it fixed. Well, some of the men on that ship said it was fixed with baling wire.
Oh.
But anyway, they sent us back to California. But in the meantime, we were in the worst storm ever. And everyone on that ship was sick. And the waves were bigger than the ship. I didn't think I'd ever get off of it.
How long did that last, that storm? Do you remember?
It was a couple days. Said it was the biggest storm ever. I believe it.
I was reading, can you tell me like where your room was located and stuff like that on the ship during that storm, how that was for you?
Yeah. They put us on the ship alphabetical order. My name is Yellowley now. I swore I would never marry anyone whose name started with Y. I wanted someone with A or B.
What was your maiden name?
Yeton,
Yeah, also a Y.
also a Y. So they put us on alphabetical order. I was the last one on. And I got the last place on the ship, which was 2 decks below the water line and at the aft end of the ship. So you felt every movement.
Mhm.
First, I'd be looking up at my feet, and then I'd be looking down at my feet.
Was this all the time or just during the storm?
We had to be in our bunks from 11 o'clock at night till 7 in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
You had to be.
Mm-hmm.
And I stayed out in the fresh air as long as I could,
Mm-hmm.
because I would get sick every time I'd go down there.
Even in the calm, I mean, when it wasn't storming, was it
Yes.
also that way for you?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
This was an old ship that they had refurnished to use as a hospital ship.
Hmm.
And not long after we used it, they scrapped it.
Mm-hmm.
And it should have been scrapped.
So they had shipped you out from California, is that right? And you were headed to Manila? Is that
Well, they shipped us out from Michigan.
Michigan? But where did you catch this boat?
Wisconsin.
Wisconsin.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But
They
did you
shipped us
ever
out from South Carolina.
make it to Manila?
Never did
No?
make it to Manila.
You said they sent you back to California?
Sent all of us back to California,
Mm-hmm.
and then they separated all of us there.
Mm-hmm. And how long were you in California?
Just long enough to get on a train, and we went all the way across the country to New Orleans,
Okay.
and that's where I finished.
And how long of a train ride was that? Do you remember?
Must have been about a week.
Mm-hmm.
We went all the way across the country,
Mm-hmm.
and then they'd stop and sidetrack the train.
Were there civilians on the train, or was it just you nurses?
Mostly nurses.
Mostly nurses. Mm-hmm.
And they dropped nurses off on the way.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't all go to New Orleans.
Mm-hmm. So then you made it to New Orleans, and how long were you stationed there? Do you remember?
The remainder of the time I was in.
Was that, I mean, I don't know how long from training in Wisconsin. How long were you in Wisconsin for training? Do you remember?
We were there quite a while, because they had Japanese prisoners there.
Did you take care of them?
Yes. And we always had to have a guard with us because they were really mean.
Do you have a story you can tell us from then? Taking care of one or two?
I just remember I'd take medicine to them and leave. And we always had to have a guard with us.
Mm-hmm. Were they restrained or anything? The
No,
prisoners?
they weren't restrained.
They weren't restrained.
But they had guards on duty
Mm-hmm.
constantly.
Mm-hmm. And they were mean to you, even though you were taking care of them?
We don't know what they were saying, but
Mm-hmm.
couldn't have been very nice.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they had to be watched constantly.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't think anyone would want to hear my story.
Oh, yes, we want to hear your story. So then you were in New Orleans, and were you at a hospital there? Were you?
Port of Embarkation Hospital.
Okay, and what is that?
It's where ships come in,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe you have someone on there that's ill.
Mm-hmm.
They'd send you to this hospital before they would send you on to a bigger one.
So you took care of patients there
Yes.
on the ship? Were they like, was it soldiers that had been injured, or were they just like had sickness or illnesses?
Well, the war was ending,
Mm-hmm.
so they had a lot of problems.
Mm-hmm.
And back then,
A lot of problems like psychological
Yes.
problems, yeah.
and they really didn't do that much for them
Right.
years ago.
Mm-hmm.
But we would send them on to another hospital
Mm-hmm.
if we didn't think they should be discharged. And a lot of them, just like today, need help.
Post-traumatic stress?
Yes.
Mhm. Would you say the majority of them were that way, or
Looking back now, I'd say yes.
mhm, that they moved on to
They
another
needed
hospital?
help and didn't get
They
it.
didn't get it. But did they go on home, do you think?
A lot
Most
of them did.
Yeah. Mhm.
One nice thing about it, I met my husband down here.
Oh, well, tell me about that, please.
Oh, he
He
came
was-
in, he had measles.
He came in, and okay. Was he in the Army or
He
the
was in
Navy?
the Army, and he was stationed across the street at Camp Plachet, I think the name was.
And what was his name?
Jesse.
Jesse Yellowley. Mhm. And what was his rank? Do you remember?
He was a first lieutenant then.
Mm-hmm.
Then he was captain.
And he had the measles.
We had a lot of boys with measles.
Well, tell me about it, about meeting him. Did you care for him, or did another nurse?
No, I
You
did.
took care of him.
Took care of him.
Mhm.
And he was from Mississippi. Talked with a southern drawl.
Mhm.
That's what got me.
Every time.
Every time. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so they were going to close the camp, the hospital down
Mm-hmm.
because the war was over
Mm-hmm.
finally. And I was thinking at that time I'd just stay in the Army. See, we went in and we were just reserves.
Mm-hmm.
We could get out or we could join the regular Army. And I told him I was going to join the regular Army. And he said he had a better idea. So we got married.
So you got married, okay. And how long did you date before you guys got married?
About 6 months.
6 months. Mm-hmm. So were you, was the war ended by then, or was it still?
It took a long time to really get it over with.
Mhm. Were you still enlisted when you got married, or no? Were you out by then?
I got out before he did.
Mm-hmm.
And he was sent to Fort Eustis, Virginia. So after I was out, I went to Fort Eustis, Virginia, and we got married in an Army chapel
Mm-hmm.
there at Fort Eustis.
Mm-hmm. How long a time do you think was between when he shipped out, or when he transferred and when you got out?
It was a couple months.
A couple months. Mm-hmm. And then after he got out, then where did you guys?
We got an apartment at Hampton, Virginia,
Mm-hmm.
and he was still in. He was still in for about 2 or 3 years, I guess, after that.
So you lived in Virginia for 2 or 3 years, and then what did you do after that?
We moved. Excuse me.
Do you need your water?
I
Or?
think so.
Okay.
We moved back to Illinois. He was from Mississippi, and I didn't really want to live in Mississippi.
Mm-hmm.
That's not a very interesting story.
It
I didn't
sure
know I had
is.
to do all
That's
this.
interesting. And so then you said you wanted to move back to Decatur, and you guys moved back to Decatur?
Yes.
Yeah. And did you work then, and what did he do?
He got a job there with, at that time they were called Standard Oil.
Standard Oil. And what did he do there? Do you know?
He
I'm sure you know.
was like a agent for, I had a territory.
Like a salesman?
Yeah,
kind
like
of
a
job?
salesman.
Mhm. And then did you stay at home, or did you get a job as a nurse somewhere, or?
I went back to the school I graduated from
Yeah.
and got a job.
Yeah.
And I worked there quite a while. And then later on, we moved to Litchfield.
Mm-hmm.
They sent him there as a salesman.
Mm-hmm.
And I got a job there at St. Francis Hospital and worked there 43 years.
I'm going to just move your water. Sorry. What department did you work in? You said 43 years at St.
43
Francis?
years. 43 years I worked every place.
You worked every place.
The last 10 years I worked in ICCU.
Was that your favorite?
ICCU.
Intensive care unit?
Intensive care.
Mm-hmm. Back to your service time, when you were on the boat and you said out, in the ocean, stuff like, what kind of food did you have and things like that? I know you said you ran out of water, but what did you have to eat?
Well, just plain old food.
Plain old food.
Which was okay.
Mm-hmm.
Not much taste to it.
What did you guys do for entertainment on the boat? I know you said you got as much fresh air as you could. Did you have?
Yeah, I stayed out as long as I could. Oh, we played cards. I learned how to play cribbage. And I started learning how to play bridge. You had to do something to
Exactly.
think.
That's what I wondered what you did during the day if you were, on this boat that was stranded.
Yeah.
Were you able to communicate home or anything? I mean, I know when you were in training, did you write letters home? Did you receive letters?
Yes. You didn't get them mailed right away, or you didn't get response right away.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I always wrote home.
Or phone calls? Did you ever receive any phone calls?
I don't think I ever did on that ship.
Not when you were in Wisconsin in training?
Oh, there, yes.
Mm-hmm.
You could.
Mm-hmm. Did you have a leave that time that you served, or were you in for the 13 months? Did you get to go home during any of that time?
No, we didn't have time, really.
So Did you create any friendships from your time of service?
A lot of them,
Mm-hmm.
but some that I lost track of when they had all 350 nurses together and sending us different places.
Mm-hmm.
I lost track of a lot of people.
Were you able to keep in contact with any of them?
The one that went in same time I did, we stayed together.
Was she from Decatur also?
She was.
Yeah, okay.
We had a little trouble staying together,
Mm-hmm.
but we locked hands and we stayed together. And she found her husband down there in New Orleans too.
Did she? And did they both move back to Decatur?
Yeah, she did. She is the only one. Everyone I went through nurses training with, they're gone.
Hmm.
And she and I are the only ones
She's
left.
still alive. Well, that's good.
And she still lives in Decatur. Her husband's dead too.
Mm-hmm. When did your husband pass?
In 2000.
In 2000? Do you have any more, I know, the memorable experiences? You talked about the storm and how sick you were on the ship. Is there anything else that really stands out to you? And of course, you met your husband.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In fact, I have.
You have
Years
something
ago,
to
you
show
didn't.
me?
Years ago, you didn't didn't have a big weddings and things
Mm-hmm.
like they do now.
Mm-hmm.
So I got married. Excuse me. I got married in a army chapel. I got all kind of old pictures.
That's great. I'm going to hold them up here to the camera.
A lot of that was when I got graduated.
It's your nursing picture. Get that on camera.
That was a good friend. Excuse me, I'm sorry.
You're fine. Now, was she also a nurse?
Yes.
Is this your friend that,
No,
no?
she didn't go in service with us.
Oh, okay, okay.
This was me in an army uniform.
That
What
says
we
Camp
worked-
McCoy, Wisconsin, 1945.
That's what we worked in.
Okay.
It was seersucker.
Seersucker, nice and cool. Oh, and what is this?
That's me in dress uniform.
It says July 1945.
Here's my husband.
Handsome man. Oh, a the glare on it.
And here's my wedding day. Married in front of a army chapel.
And what was your wedding date? Do you remember the date?
May 17, 1941, I believe it was. It was 41. No, not 41.
Yeah, not 41.
44 it was. I didn't have time to think about it.
That's okay. Is this your husband?
Yes. Let's see if they're. And every place you went in service, you'd always be with other service people.
Mm-hmm.
There was a,
Now, where was this at? Do you remember?
it was in California. That's really old,
Which one are you?
right here.
This one?
Uh-huh.
This is you. Oops. Now, is that your husband?
No,
No? Do you recall who that is? Or the other female? Was she a nurse also?
she's a nurse.
Mm-hmm.
You made friends fast, and then you lost them.
That's right.
That just happened to be the one I had left. Because when you would stop someplace, you just automatically go to the ones in uniform.
Can you tell me who's in that photo?
That was my dad and my uncle
And you,
and me.
in uniform. "1945", it says on the back of that. Here you are again, in uniform. Some little kids.
Yeah, they're nieces.
Yes. Another one of you in uniform. It says 1945.
I lost a lot of my pictures. I had my house up for sale, and something broke on the furnace.
Mm.
And then it was those real cold days,
Mm-hmm.
and the water pipes froze
Oh,
and
no.
burst,
Mm.
and I had such a mess. So half of my pictures were just ruined from all that water.
Mhm. That's not good. Did you receive any medals or citations when you were?
Yeah, they gave us. Here they are. American Campaign. I think it's on there.
American Campaign Medal,
Asian Pacific.
Asiatic Pacific
Yeah.
Campaign Medal.
They gave medals for everything. I mean, those ribbons.
And yes.
And I am registered at the Women's Memorial.
Okay. Which memorial is that? Do you know?
It's with this
Oh,
one.
this Women in Military Service for America.
But it's in trouble. I mean, they're always collecting money.
Where is this located? Is
in
it
Washington?
in Washington, D.C.? Okay. American Campaign Medal, Asiatic Pacific Campaign Medal, and World War II Victory Medal.
I got a medal for stepping out in the water all that time.
Is that the Asiatic one?
I guess so.
So, did you and your husband have any children?
3.
3? How would you say the military experiences affected your life?
Well, it really affected my life.
Mm-hmm.
I would do it again.
You would do it again.
And if any young people, as long as you're not really in the fighting,
Mm-hmm.
it's a good experience.
Had you traveled before?
No,
Had
not
you
much.
hadn't been anywhere basically outside of Decatur?
Well, just to Indiana and Kentucky,
Mm-hmm.
where my mother's family were.
Mm-hmm. So you got to be out in the ocean and California and New Orleans, and
Yeah,
it was probably pretty neat for you, right?
I
You enjoyed that?
I would recommend it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, I keep coughing.
Oh, you're fine. Do you need any more of your water? Have you gone on these honor flights that they take the veterans to out to Washington, D.C.?
I did go on
You
it.
did go?
Uh-huh.
Did you enjoy that?
I did.
Yeah, good.
My daughter, my youngest daughter, went with
Mhm.
me
Mhm.
as the guide,
Mm-hmm.
and
How long ago did you do that?
it's been 3 years.
3 years. Very nice.
I still have all my papers
Mm-hmm.
to put in a book. I haven't done it yet.
Okay. All right. How many, I was going to go back real quick. How many soldiers do you think you took care of? Did you see some on a daily basis, new patients on a daily basis when you were in New Orleans, or?
This was a hard time. The Army was trying to, stop the
In the
war,
war? Mm-hmm.
send everybody home, and
Mm-hmm.
it was a mess, really. We still had patients that were coming into the country, coming home, and
Were they wounded or were they sick? Like you said, your husband had the measles. Were they?
we just kept them there for a couple of days
Observation? Mm-hmm.
and then sent them on someplace else
Mm-hmm.
if they needed more care.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of them were discharged from there
Mm-hmm.
and probably should have had more care.
Mm-hmm. So they came in by boat, is that?
A lot of them.
And how many would you say would arrive at one time?
Well, not too many at one time, but they try to separate them and send them home, or
Mm-hmm.
try to determine what hospital to send them to next
Mm-hmm.
if they needed more care. Because we did not keep them too long at this embarkation hospital.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, is there anything else that you would like to add?
Probably after I get home, I can think of a lot.
Well,
Well, she kind of surprised me saying I was going to be interviewed.
well,
I hope
I know that was a long time ago.
It was.
and-
I hope I remember. And when we first went in, we had to go through training like the boys did.
Mhm.
We had to go through the gas chambers,
Okay,
and we had
so it was
to,
pretty physical training.
Yes.
Yeah.
we marched every day, and
So you had like a drill sergeant? Were they
oh yeah, we had
very
a drill.
strict with you? Mhm. How did you handle that? Did you hold up to that well, or no?
Well, yeah, he was at a disadvantage.
Why's that?
We were all lieutenants, and he was a sergeant,
Oh,
and he stomped on his hat a lot of times, because we all had 2 left feet to begin with.
so he was upset with you? Is that why he would stomp on his hat?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
One time, the girl I went into training, into the service with, she was real tall.
Mm-hmm.
And I was short, but I'm shorter now than I was then. I've lost a lot of height.
How tall were you back then? Do you remember?
5'2".
5'2", okay.
Now I'm about 4'9".
Mm-hmm.
So I'm shrinking.
Mm-hmm.
And we had to be in platoons. Rose was always leading everyone because she was the tallest. And I was always the last one in line because I was about the shortest. And one day there, the sergeant said, someone volunteered to take over part of this platoon. It's too big for one platoon. And the girl next to me, her name was Ginger. She pushed me and I was out in front of the group.
Oh.
And he
She
said,
volunteered you.
he said, take over. I didn't know what I was doing. I marched those girls right through a big puddle of mud.
On purpose?
No,
You didn't know.
I got excited and couldn't even remember the word halt.
Ah. Okay.
And they went right along with it and went over the fence and went in the mud because this was a farmer on the other side
Mm-hmm.
of where we were marching. So they told me they didn't want me to lead the platoon anymore.
What time of the year was that?
It was in the fall, I think.
Mhm.
It was still nice weather.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's a good memory.
Yeah. Wish I had a picture of them going over the fence.
How upset were they with you?
They didn't care.
They
They
didn't
just
care.
went right along with it.
Okay.
The sergeant stomped on his hat that day. And then we all left our jackets. He got even with us. He marched us clear to the other side of the campground, dismissed us over on the other side. We all had to walk back about a mile to get our jackets. But the one day, they had a general come, and we had to march. I've always seen them in movies march, and they always look so pretty when they do that.
Mm-hmm.
We did him proud. He said after all the stomping on his hat and everything, we did it without making any mistakes.
Came through in the end. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And the priest, the priest and everyone that was in service, they were always like your best friends.
Mm-hmm.
Or if you had trouble or anything,
You can talk to them.
yeah, you always talk to them.
That's good.
Yeah. I could have done this better if I'd have
You're fine.
known what I was supposed to be doing.
No, this is good. This is good. You're doing well.
So that's about all I know.
Okay. We can end it here. I was going to say if there's anything else you want to add, you can add, or we can end here.
Yeah. I can't think of anything
Okay.
else.
Thank you for coming today to do the interview, and thank you for your service. It's been my honor to interview you.
Thank you.
Okay. That will conclude the interview then.